Bean curd is an essential ingredient in the next recipe that I'm going to show you. It's one of the most delicious of the Chinese thick soup, and it's called hot and sour soup. And it's very popular in northern and western China, and I love it because it has all these array of textures in it. For this, you'll need 10 ounces of bean curd, and you can find bean curd sold in cake form at health food stores or at Chinese grocers. And for this, you need to cut the bean curd into shreds or strips like that. Next, I want to show you 2 Chinese ingredients that are essential to the soup that makes it so nice. They're Chinese ingredients that are only available at Chinese grocer. The first one is this dried Chinese mushroom. And it comes dried like this. It's very nice. And you must soak it in warm water for about 20 minutes. And they get nice and soft like this. And soaking them reconstitutes their shape. Squeeze all the excess water out of the mushroom. And cut off the stems. The stems are not tasty at all, unlike Western mushrooms. Just discard the stems. Take the mushroom caps and cut them up into shreds like that. And for this soup, I'm using about 1 ounce of dried Chinese mushroom. The next ingredient is bean thread noodles or transparent noodles. And technically speaking, they're really not a noodle because they're made from beans. And they need to be soaked in water for about 5 minutes, and they have this nice slippery texture. And drain them before you cut them up, and you need to cut them into manageable portions. And for this soup, I'm using 1 ounce of bean thread noodles. Both of these Chinese ingredients can be found at Chinese grocers, and if you don't have a Chinese grocer near you, there's a list of those who have a mail order service in the book which accompanies the series. Now I'm ready to make my soup. For the soup, I'm using 2 pints of good homemade chicken stock. I think a good soup has to have a good stock because that's the foundation of the soup. Don't use stock cubes because they're much too salty and they just don't give that nice flavor that you need for a good soup. And I'm going to add 3 ounces of shredded lean pork, which I've blanched in some water to remove some of the scum and to give the pork a nice clean taste. This is a very nice and tasty soup. Now I'm going to add the bean thread noodles and the mushroom, which will give the soup a nice, interesting texture. Then I'm going to add the bean curd. It's really quite a wonderful soup. And now I'm going to flavor the soup with 2 teaspoons of sugar, half a teaspoon of white pepper, and this is what gives the soup its hotness, 2 tablespoons of dark soy sauce, so add some richness to it. And the next ingredient is vinegar. And of course, vinegar gives the sour taste to the soup. And the traditional vinegar to use is Chinese red rice vinegar. And if you can't get it, you can substitute cider vinegar. It works just as nice. And Chinese red rice vinegar is available from Chinese grocers. And for this soup, I'm using 3 tablespoons. And now I'm going to thicken the soup in a traditional Chinese manner. And for this, I'm using 1 tablespoon of corn flour mixed with 1 tablespoon of water, and mix that into a nice paste because this is going to be a thick soup. And so I want to thicken this just slightly, not too thick. Mix that very well so that all the flavors mingle, and let it simmer for about 2 minutes so the starch can cook through. Now, while the soup is coming to a simmer, I want to show you another nice egg mixture to add to the soup, and this will give it a nice texture and look. This is 2 small eggs, which I'm lightly beating, and I'm adding 1 teaspoon of sesame oil to that to give it a nice flavor. Now, I'm going to add the egg mixture, but not all at once, because if you add it all at once, it'll be a nice, it'll be a clump. And what I want is nice thin strands of egg. So the technique is to pour it in a steady stream like this, and take a fork or a chopstick and move it around, pulling the strands. And this will give the soup a lovely texture and appearance. And they're really nice light strands. Looks beautiful. Now, I'm going to finish the soup with 2 tablespoons of finely chopped spring onions, 2 tablespoons of finely chopped fresh coriander, and this will add a nice earthy taste to this soup. And finally, I'm going to just add 1 teaspoon of sesame oil to give it a finishing touch. Stir that around, and the soup is ready to be eaten. It just smells so good.